Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating look back, a deep dive into how people understood hypnotism, hypnotic suggestion, right around the turn of the century.
Yeah, and our main guide here is this pretty unique scientific treatise from 1900. It's called Hypnotism and Hypnotic Suggestion.
Compiled by 30 authors, it says.
That's right, edited by E. Virgil Neal and Charles S. Clarke. So you get a lot of different viewpoints from that specific time.
Okay, so our mission then is to unpack this, see what surprising ideas they had about, say, the mind-body connection, suggestion itself, and, well, how relevant it might still be. You might be surprised. So when we think hypnotism now, there's often this maybe air of mystery around it, right? Or stage shows. But this 1900 book seems to have framed it very differently, more scientific.
Absolutely. They really tried to demystify it. You had people like E.W. Scripture from Yale saying its phenomena were nothing unnatural or occult.
Nothing occult, just natural.
Exactly. Totally in conformity with the laws of nature. That was a big step, moving away from, the more sensational ideas.
Right, shifting the perception. So if it wasn't magic or anything, how did they think it actually worked? What was the mechanism?
Oh, they boiled it down to two key things, really. First, you needed to induce a sort of sleepy or dazed condition, making the person unusually sensitive to suggestions. And second, well, it was simply the giving of suggestions that are followed by actions, hallucinations, etc.
Just giving the suggestion?
Yeah, but what's really interesting is they also believed most of the phenomena can be produced in sane persons in a perfectly normal condition.
So not even needing the deep trance necessarily.
Right. Just by choosing the right suggestions. It suggests it's more about maybe focused attention than some kind of magical state.
That's really quite something. Less trance, more focus. And didn't the book have some, simple demonstrations, things listeners could almost imagine trying?
It did, yeah. Some simple experiments or tests to gauge susceptibility.
Like what? What were they suggesting?
Well, the first one was about muscle relaxation. You'd put your left hand on your right palm.
Okay.
And the operator suggests your arm is getting heavier, impossibly heavy, hard to lift. Interestingly, the text notes a lot of people actually struggle with fully relaxing muscles.
Huh. Which is important for rest anyway, they point out. What else?
Then there were tests like suggesting you'll fall backward or forward.
The classic stage stuff almost.
Sort of. And fastening hands together, crossing them, pushing tight, then suggesting they're stuck, or even keeping someone in a chair just by having them focus on the operator's eyes and suggesting they're fastened tightly.
So these tests, they weren't about the trick itself, but...
Exactly. It was about demonstrating this strong concentration of attention, a state where this subject maybe doesn't have full control of their faculties because their attention is so narrowed.
Makes sense.
And they were pretty clear. Nearly all persons can be hypnotized to some extent, and a very large proportion can be put to sleep. Fewer follow suggestions while asleep, though. It's really about that focused state.
Okay, so you get someone into this state. What about getting them out? People worry about getting stuck, don't they? Was that a concern back then?
They seem pretty confident about it. The book directly says there is no danger in hypnotic sleep.
No danger. How did they wake people up?
Usually just a slight shock, like snapping fingers or clapping hands, along with some reassurance. You are all right. Wake up.
And if that didn't work? Or if they were just left alone?
They'd simply drift into natural sleep. The main caution wasn't about the subject getting stuck, but about the operator. They needed self-control, so they didn't make the subject nervous or hysterical. The operator's state mattered.
Right, the operator's calmness is key. Okay, so it's not just a one-on-one clinical thing. They saw this power of suggestion playing out on a much bigger stage, didn't they, in everyday life?
Oh, definitely. They had this great term, suggestionizing.
Suggestionizing.
Yeah, describing how it could influence whole bodies of people. They pointed to orators, preachers, and singers, using their voice, their tone, to the point of overpowering the judgment entirely.
Wow. Overpowering judgment. There was that story from the London court, too, wasn't there?
Yes, fascinating example. A prisoner confessed to theft. Clear case, you'd think.
Right.
But his lawyer's skill and eloquence apparently had such a hypnotizing or suggestionizing effect, the jury came back not guilty.
Yeah.
Even knowing about the confession.
That's astonishing. Just the power of words bypassing the facts.
It really is. And they directly compared that to politicians using patent fallacies or advertisers wielding this, little short of magical power to create wants.
Creating wants we didn't know we had. Sounds familiar.
Very. They saw mass persuasion working on almost hypnotic principles.
So, beyond swaying crowds or selling things, what about health? Did they see suggestion as a tool for healing?
Absolutely. They argued it had been used therapeutically from the earliest times. They mentioned ancient priests, Indian voodoo doctors, even the old curing by the royal touch.
The king's touch for scrofula, like Edward the Confessor?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Figures like him, St. Augustine.
Mm-hmm.
They saw these as historical examples, and underpinning it was this 1900 belief that thoughts are things,
Thoughts are things.
and that thought waves proceed from the soul. A very mind over matter perspective.
So, what specific health issues did they think suggestion could tackle?
They focused a lot on what they called imaginary diseases.
Imaginary, meaning not real.
Not quite. More like
No.
conditions rooted in the mind's belief.
Yeah.
They said these were much more common than is generally supposed and could be very serious, like someone convinced they have heart disease or cancer based on suggestion or fear.
Okay.
And crucially, they believed suggestion could actually cause these conditions too. They mentioned that classic experiment.
The one with the criminal.
Yeah, pretending to bleed a condemned man to death. And he actually dies just from the belief, even though no blood was lost. A stark illustration of the psychosomatic power.
That's intense. So, the mind's belief creating physical reality. Did they think it could cure real diseases too?
Well, they made a distinction. They thought suggestion alone primarily cured those imaginary or functional diseases, the ones without clear physical damage or lesions.
What we might call psychosomatic illnesses today.
Right. But even for other conditions, they saw it as a valuable aid, helping to relieve fear, worry, pain, sleeplessness, things that definitely hinder recovery.
So, more of an aid in most cases. But didn't you mention surgery? That goes beyond just aiding recovery.
That's true. There's that incredible case from 1829, a Paris surgeon, M. Cloquet.
Right, the breast amputation.
Yes, he supposedly amputated a cancerous breast while the patient was in a hypnotic sleep, feeling no pain. This is way before proper anesthesia, remember?
Just astonishing.
And they even mentioned distant hypnotism, doctors apparently inducing sleep from miles away back in 1816.
Hypnosis by mail.
Seems like it. Their overall stance was pretty bold. Hypnotic suggestion is never poisonous or harmful, can always be used, and sometimes could even replace medicine or surgery.
Replace surgery. That's a huge claim. What about self-improvement? Bad habits, character flaws.
Oh, that was a major focus.
Yeah.
They were confident it could cure habits like cigarette and alcohol addiction,
Okay.
and even defects of character. Things like timidity, bashfulness, inattentiveness, willfulness, malice, even untruthfulness. They believed suggestion could remedy these.
Remedy character defects. How did they have examples?
They did, some pretty striking ones.
Yeah.
A child reportedly cured of anger, disobedience, bad schoolwork in just 6 sessions.
6 sessions.
Yeah. In another case, using language that's obviously dated now, described transforming a thief and prostitute into a, quote, submissive, obedient, honest, clean, and hardworking woman.
Wow. That's quite a transformation they're claiming.
It is. They also listed success with kleptomania, lying, fear of the dark, irritability, idleness, cruelty, a whole raft of issues.
And they thought these changes could stick, be permanent.
Yes, they attributed that to 2 things. Post-hypnotic suggestion, doing things later without remembering being told, and simply the law of the formation of habit. Basically, reinforcing new behaviors until they become automatic.
Okay, this sounds almost too powerful. Were there any warnings, any limits? Could you make someone violate their own morals?
That's a key point they addressed. They cautioned that trying to deceive a hypnotized subject, quote, works an injury to his nervous system.
An injury.
Yes, and that people would show stronger resistance to suggestions that went against their core beliefs or morals. Trying to suggest something criminal or against their conscientious scruples could even cause a violent shock.
So there's a built-in resistance. It's not like mind control where you can just override everything.
Doesn't sound like it. They said subjects will frequently decline to do things which are opposed to their ideas of right or to their inclination.
Like making someone who hates alcohol take a drink.
Exactly. Or forcing a shy person to make a speech. The operator often had to work against the subject's own self-suggestions, their internal resistance.
Right, so it's not about a weak will, necessarily.
No. They concluded that no person can be hypnotized for the first time if he believes himself able to resist.
Yeah.
But every healthy, sane person is essentially susceptible if you keep trying. It seems to be more about capturing attention and bypassing that conscious resistance, not about inherent weakness.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, let's dig into their model of the mind itself, because they had some ideas that sound surprisingly modern in a way.
They really did. They talked about two minds of man, objective and subjective.
Objective and subjective, like conscious and unconscious.
Pretty much, yeah. The subjective mind, they said, is constantly amenable to control by suggestion. And crucially, it controls the functions, sensations, and conditions of the body.
So the subjective or unconscious mind runs the body and is open to suggestion.
That was the idea. Then they talked about the unconscious or secondary self or subliminal consciousness.
Subliminal consciousness. What did they think was in there?
Not just memories and tendencies, but potentially, get this, traces of long-lost but serviceable faculties.
Lost faculties? Like what? Superpowers?
Well, maybe not superpowers, but things like telepathy, sense of time, of direction, of right, and even some partial control over bodily functions like digestion or circulation, things they thought modern people had just sort of forgotten how to influence.
Wow. Telepathy, sense of direction, like inherent abilities we've lost touch with.
That seems to be what they were suggesting, that the subliminal consciousness held onto these older, maybe latent human capabilities.
This is where it gets really mind-bending, isn't it? The idea that thought is dynamic, that it's force and motion, that thoughts are things.
Exactly. And that they can be sent forth, which leads directly into their ideas about telepathy.
How do they explain that? Sending thoughts.
They use the analogy of electricity, comparing nerve force to it. They speculated that brain activity might produce waves similar to the Hertzian waves that make wireless telegraphy possible.
Brainwaves making wireless thought possible. That's incredibly ahead of its time for 1900.
It really is. And they made this bold claim. Telepathy is no greater enigma than the propagation of light. Just another natural force we didn't fully grasp yet.
Did they have evidence for this?
No.
Or was it pure speculation?
They cited specific instances that seemed to support it. Cases of that hypnotism at a distance we mentioned earlier.
Right, Dr. Earth hypnotizing his wife from 20 miles off.
Yes, or St. Augustine healing someone through laying on hands after having a dream about it. They interpreted these events as proving some strange power, unseen by the fleshy eye.
And even suggesting it proved immortality.
They went there, yes. Seeing these phenomena as evidence of something beyond the purely physical. It shows how they blended scientific observation with, well, more philosophical speculation.
Definitely blurring the lines. So going back to the hypnotic state itself, how did it affect how someone perceived reality?
They believed that in hypnosis, people could experience states of consciousness without stimulus, without sense organs, without a human body at all.
Without a body, how?
Meaning the experience wasn't tied to immediate sensory input. It blurred the line between real perception and hallucination. They could apparently perceive impossible things, even contradictory things, within that state.
Which says a lot about how subjective reality can be.
Absolutely. And it ties into their view of pain, too. They argued that a great deal of what we regard as bodily pain is simply imaginary.
Imaginary again.
Meaning the painfulness, the suffering part, comes largely from accompanying disagreeable thoughts, from suggestion and autosuggestion.
So you can think your way into more pain, or out of it.
That was the idea. It is possible to dispel this part of pain by the same means to which that part owes its existence. They pointed to martyrs or accused witches enduring torture, seemingly without pain, as possible examples.
A very early take on the placebo effect, almost, or pain gating.
You could definitely see the parallels. It's about how the mind interprets or modulates the signals.
So wrapping this up, how did they see these principles applying broadly, beyond individuals?
They really broadened the scope. They claimed all fine art acts through suggestion. And even more strikingly, in every case where a multitude or mob is moved, it is done by a kind of hypnotism.
All art. Mob behavior. That's suggestion too.
In their view, yes. A kind of mass hypnotism shaping aesthetic feelings, shaping collective action. A truly pervasive force.
Wow. This deep dive into the 1900 view of hypnotism has been, well, quite the journey. From trying to make it scientific to practical uses in health and habit change, all the way to telepathy and the nature of reality itself. It's a really rich picture.
It absolutely is. And, while some of the language or specific ideas, like maybe telepathy proving immortality, might seem a bit dated or speculative to us now, the core ideas about the power of suggestion, the importance of focused attention, that deep link between mind and body, those things explored over a century ago, they still feel incredibly relevant, don't they?
They really do. It makes you think about how much our own internal state dictates our experience.
Definitely.
So here's something to think about as you go about your day. How much of your own reality, what you think, how you feel, maybe even what you physically sense, isn't just about objective facts out there, but is shaped by that constant flow of suggestions, both the ones you get from the world and the ones you tell yourself. What does that say about the power you have, maybe unconsciously, over your own life?